The story of Isaac and Ishmael is one of promise, rivalry, faith, legacy, love, and loss. A saga that spans generations and carries the weight of divine destiny. It's a tale that shows the complexities of family relationships, faith in God, and the choices that shape legacies. Before we begin, remember to subscribe, like this video, and share it with others. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss another intriguing biblical story. And as you listen, drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's dive into this unforgettable tale. Abraham, chosen by God to be the father of nations, carried a promise that seemed impossible. His descendants were to be as numerous as the stars, yet as the years passed, his wife Sarah remained barren. Though they clung to God's words, the silence of their empty tent was deafening. Sarah, now in her old age, began to question if perhaps the promise was not meant to come through her. "Abraham," she said one night, her voice heavy with resignation, "the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Go to Hagar, my maidservant. Perhaps through her I shall obtain a child." Abraham hesitated, for he loved Sarah deeply and knew the implications of such a choice. But Sarah insisted, and with a heart divided, Abraham agreed. When Hagar conceived, the household seemed to shift overnight. Hagar, once humble and obedient, now carried a confidence that bordered on defiance. She walked with her head high, aware that she bore Abraham's child. This change in demeanor did not escape Sarah, whose frustration boiled over into jealousy and grief. Sarah's frustration grew, but she endured it, until the day Hagar openly mocked her barrenness. Saw demanded that Abraham intervene. Torn between the two women, Abraham pleaded for peace, but the household was now divided. Unable to bear the tension, Hagar fled into the wilderness. Alone and vulnerable, she wept bitterly, questioning her place in Abraham's household and in God's plan. But it was there, by a spring of water, that an angel of the Lord appeared to her. "Hagar, servant of Sarah, where have you come from, and where are you going?" "I am fleeing from my mistress Sarah," Hagar replied, her voice trembling. The angel comforted her and delivered a promise. Her son would be named Ishmael, meaning God hears, for the Lord had heard her affliction. He would grow to be a wild man, strong and independent, and his descendants would be numerous. With renewed faith, Hagar returned to Abraham's camp, carrying within her the beginnings of a nation. When Ishmael was born, Abraham's joy knew no bounds. He saw in the boy the fulfillment of God's promise, a future leader who would carry his legacy. Ishmael grew strong under his father's watchful eye, learning to hunt, herd, and command respect. But the dynamics within the household remained strained. Hagar's pride and Sarah's bitterness often clashed, creating a tension that permeated every corner of their lives. Still, life went on, and Ishmael thrived, unaware of the storm brewing on the horizon. Hagar and Ishmael were favored by some servants, while Sarah held her own alliances. Years passed and Abraham and Sarah continued to age. The promise of a child through Sarah seemed increasingly unlikely, yet God's word remained steadfast. One day, as Abraham sat in the heat of the day, 3 visitors approached his tent. He welcomed them with great hospitality, offering food and water. During their meal, one of the visitors announced, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, shall have a son." Inside the tent, Sarah laughed silently to herself. "After I am worn out, and my Lord is old, shall I have pleasure?" The visitor responded, "Why did Sarah laugh? Is anything too hard for the Lord?" This news shook the entire household. Even though Sarah laughed, within her hope flickered to life. True to his word, Sarah conceived, and the birth of Isaac brought unimaginable joy to the household. When Isaac was born, the household erupted in celebration. Abraham held his second son with tears in his eyes, overwhelmed by the fulfillment of God's promise. Sarah too rejoiced, declaring, "God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh over me." Abraham hosted a great feast, inviting kings and dignitaries from nearby lands. Jubilation filled the air as friends and allies congratulated the aged couple on their miracle child. Ishmael, however, stood on the sidelines, his heart heavy with jealousy. He had been the center of his father's world, and now that attention was divided. As Isaac grew, so did the tension between him and Ishmael. Sarah watched Ishmael closely, convinced that he posed a threat to Isaac's inheritance. Her fears were confirmed during a feast celebrating Isaac's weaning. Ishmael, now a teenager, mocked his younger brother, calling him the little prince and making a jest of his position in the family. Sarah confronted Abraham, her voice filled with fury. "Cast out this slave woman and her son, for the son of this slave shall not be heir with my son, Isaac." Abraham was deeply troubled. Ishmael was his son, his flesh and blood. But God spoke to him, saying, "Do not be distressed because of the boy and your slave woman. Through Isaac shall your offspring be named, and I will make a nation of the son of the slave woman also, because he is your offspring." With a heavy heart, Abraham sent Hagar and Ishmael away. They wandered in the wilderness, their provisions running out quickly. When all seemed lost, Hagar placed Ishmael under a bush and sat at a distance, unable to watch her son die. She wept bitterly, and Ishmael's cries rose to heaven. God heard their cries and sent an angel to comfort them. A well of water appeared, saving their lives. Strengthened by this divine intervention, Hagar resolved to raise Ishmael as a leader. Though he built his own legacy, Ishmael never forgot the sting of rejection and often spoke bitterly of Isaac. Ishmael grew up in the wilderness of Paran, becoming a skilled archer and eventually marrying an Egyptian woman. Yet the pain of his separation from Abraham and Isaac never left him. Isaac, meanwhile, grew into a man of quiet faith. When it was time for him to marry, Abraham sent his servant to find a wife. Guided by God, the servant found Rebekah, a kind and beautiful woman. Their marriage was joyous, but soon they faced a trial of their own. Rebekah was barren. For 20 years, Isaac prayed fervently for children. "O Lord, grant us offspring, that your promise may be fulfilled," he pleaded. Rebekah too cried out to God, and their prayers were finally answered. She conceived twins, Esau and Jacob, after years of waiting. Sarah lived to see Isaac marry, but her life came to an end soon after. Abraham mourned deeply for her, and her burial became a solemn event. Kings and nobles came to pay their respects, and the tension between Isaac and Ishmael simmered as they met at the graveside. Ishmael's resentment was evident, but he refrained from causing a scene out of respect for Abraham. As Abraham grew older, he married Keturah and fathered 6 more sons. Yet his heart remained with Isaac, the child of promise. Before his death, Abraham ensured that Isaac would inherit the covenant, giving gifts to his other sons and sending them away to prevent conflict. Abraham lived to the age of 175, witnessing the growth of both Isaac and Ishmael's families. When he passed, the entire region mourned. Kings and tribes came to honor him, and his funeral was a grand event. Isaac and Ishmael stood side by side to bury their father in the cave of Machpelah, but even in their shared grief, tensions arose. Ishmael accused Isaac of favoritism, saying, "You were chosen by our father, but that does not make you greater than me." Isaac replied, "The choice was God's, not mine." Despite the tension, they managed to honor Abraham together, their shared love for their father momentarily overshadowing their rivalry. Isaac continued to lead the covenantal line, raising Jacob and Esau, while Ishmael became the patriarch of 12 tribes. Their descendants would go on to shape the history of nations, their rivalry echoing through generations. Though they walked different paths, the lives of Isaac and Ishmael remained intertwined, their rivalry shaping the destinies of their descendants. Their story serves as a powerful reminder of faith, family, and the complexities of human relationships. What did you think of this incredible story? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into fascinating biblical tales. Turn on notifications so you never miss an update.